I want the young turks take you granted conspiracy with you guys. Okay, so we got a lot of show for you guys. We got some controversy in pop culture. We got controversy in politics. Controversy for everyone. But look, there's so many amazing stories in today's show, and there's substance like Joe Biden's actually doing something about the environment that's wonderful, and then Democrats are terrible on marijuana legalization.
So bad.
Awful.
So
like, who else are you going to turn to who's actually honest? We'll tell you when Democrats suck and when they're great.
No, we're
literally.
So honest.
I don't think, like, in terms of if you compare us to mainstream media, I don't think anyone in mainstream media is honest about that. MSNBC's like, oh, they're always awesome. Fox News, they're always bad.
Right? You know, I will say we're so honest that we will be honest about one another on this show live. When you sent that story about Senate Democrats on pot legalization, I was like, oh, it's a boring story. It's not going to be that great. No, I was wrong. I was wrong. That story is not boring. The quotes from Senate Democrats will make your head spin. They're so embarrassing. So I'm looking forward to talking about that.
Yeah, and today, guys, two extra programming notes that are important. One, the post game is free and available to everyone. Normally it's just for members, but that's because we're doing Earth Day special. So we're gonna keep on rolling all the way to 8 o'clock. The last half hour of the Earth Day special is just for members, so you sign up now at tyt.com/join. But in the free post game today, Ben Shapiro goes to Home Depot. You're going to love that story. You're also going to love our Earth Day special led by John Iadarola. Anna will be here, I will be here. You'll love it. All right, let's get started.
All right. Well, we begin with the substance and Biden's plan for climate change. Joe Biden has unveiled his game plan to fight the climate emergency we're experiencing, which is in fact a climate emergency. In fact, Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, has just declared a state of emergency as a result of the ongoing drought. 2 counties in California are hit particularly hard by that. But getting back to Biden's target calls for cutting US carbon dioxide output by 50% to 52% compared with the 2005 levels. And I think this part is important. A far more aggressive goal than the one former President Barack Obama proposed half a decade ago. Biden has called for putting the US on a path to eliminating net greenhouse gas pollution by mid-century. Now, I emphasize the comparison to Obama's administration because it does appear as though Biden loves being compared to Obama as someone who's willing to do more for the American people. So if that positive reinforcement works, great, let's definitely engage in that. But how possible is it for him to hit these lofty goals when Congress continues to be divided and broken? I think that's an important part of this discussion. Before we get to that though, let's take a quick look at what Biden had to say during his virtual conference with dozens of other world leaders.
These steps will set America on a path of net zero emissions economy by no later than 2050. But the truth is, America represents less than 15% of the world's emissions. No nation can solve this crisis on our own, as I know you all fully understand. All of us, and particularly those of us who represent the world's largest economies, we have to step up.
So this is important, especially considering the damage that was done during the Trump administration. Trump famously pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord. He undid some of the environmental regulations we have in the United States. And he essentially said, no, we're not gonna follow through with any of these carbon cutting plans. And so when you're the top polluting country in the world, that makes everyone else think, well, then we're not gonna do anything. Why are we going to innovate or create new technology or move to renewable energy when the United States, the biggest polluter, is refusing to do anything? Biden is trying to reverse that. So that's an important part of the story as well.
Yeah, before I get to Biden's plans and how ambitious they are, and they really are, they're surprisingly ambitious if you ask me. The details are really important, we'll get to in a second. Just 2 kind of side notes. First, congratulations to China, they've actually passed us. Historically, America is by far the biggest polluting country in the history of the world, but China is now #1 in terms of emissions. And they they say they're going to also take action. They didn't add much today to what they've said in the past, but they claim that they're going to basically get off of coal by 2060, which would be a big project for them. 2060 is a long time away. So they've done better proposals than us during the Trump era, but now we're getting out ahead of them, which is a good news, great news. Second side note here. Anna told you Gavin Newsom, governor of California, declared a drought in 2 counties in California. And it's a disaster in California for how bad the droughts are. They were last year, they're gonna be this year, they're gonna be again next year. Climate change is 100% real. It's not coming later, it's here now. But I have to share a tweet with you guys from Joe Sandberg. He's the founder of Aspiration and a wonderful and really strong fighter for progressives, right? And he did this tweet about Gavin Newsom's announcement that kind of caught on fire online. He said, please, just simple, please stop approving fracking permits.
Bingo, exactly.
Okay, yeah. So if you think it's really horrible and you're a Democrat and you're the governor of California and you're standing, as Gavin Newsom explained in that photo op, he should be 40 feet underwater, but there's no water in that area. So that's a devastating turn of events. Methane is one of the worst gases there is. In fact, Biden is part of his proposals about that. And fracking is horrible on release of methane. So Sandberg is definitely right about that. But more about Biden's proposals, and then I'll tell you why I think they're so ambitious.
So there's so many different angles to touch this story on. But since you mentioned China, I do want to go back to that real quick, because the good news with this virtual conference that Biden is leading, really, it was a conference that was organized and put together by the United States. The great thing is that 2 countries that we absolutely must collaborate and work with agreed to attend. So that's Russia and China. And really, despite all of the other issues that the United States might have foreign policy wise with these countries, we need to work with them in order to really defeat or deal with climate change effectively. We can't do it unilaterally. Clearly, we can't do that. So Chinese Premier Xi Jinping pledged for the first time to begin reducing coal consumption, to Cenk's point, by the middle of the decade. And he also said, we will strictly control coal-fired power generation projects. We will strictly limit the increase in coal consumption over the 14th five-year period and phase it down in the 15th five-year period, he said, referring to the next economic planning period that begins in 2026. So again, obviously we would like to see more, but right now, understandably, world leaders are hesitant and skeptical of the United States, because really the United States and its policy in responding to climate change depends on who's in office. And so if it's gonna change every 4 or every 8 years, they're not gonna follow through on things knowing that the United States could renege on its promises as well. That's why Donald Trump's actions were so incredibly damaging, both when it came to climate issues and also when it came to foreign policy issues like following through with the Iran nuclear deal.
Yeah, so John Kerry, who was appointed by Biden to lead this climate change effort, sounded so confident that I was kind of stunned by it. He's like, oh, we'll hit these goals easy. Now let me read you just 4 of the goals in order to get to the overall number that Biden's trying to hit by 2030. And again, that's only 9 years from now, right? Oil and gas producers would slash emissions of methane, a potent heat trapping gas, by 60%. 60% reduction. Now, it's a reduction, don't get me wrong, from now to 2030. No, it's from the 2005 numbers when they started this in the first place, this long-term project. But still, reducing by 60% is a big number by 2030. Okay, more surprising numbers. Virtually all of the 200 remaining coal plants in the US would shut down unless they too can capture their emissions and bury them underground, according to the New York Times, okay? Shutting down all 200. Now, Biden hasn't said he's gonna shut down all of those plants, but these are the numbers that would be required to hit the goal. By 2030, half the country's electricity would come from renewable sources such as wind, solar, or hydropower, up from 1/5 today. First of all, did you know that 20% of our energy comes from renewable energies like solar and wind? So that's a big number already. So we're actually making a lot more progress than I think people realize sometimes.
Damn.
But going to half, wow, that is very ambitious by 2030. Great, wonderful, okay? And last one, and there are many others here, but I'm just giving you some of the highlights. By 2030, 2/3 of the new cars and SUVs sold would be battery powered, up from roughly only 2% today. Now that's not all the cars on the road, that's new cars sold by 2030, but going from 2% to 2/3 of all cars. No wonder Tesla stock is through the roof. So if they can hit those numbers and they seem weirdly confident about it, that is a good start. Look, we're super tough on corporate Democrats and we give them no quarter at all. But if you're gonna do wonderful things, we'd love to give you credit.
Yes.
So I like this strong effort here. Obviously, it's super important that they follow through.
It's super important that they follow through, and there's also a massive caveat that's worth discussing. Because while the proposals coming from the Democratic Party are oftentimes pretty good, they have to actually fight on behalf of those policies. And what we're hearing from the Biden administration is that, maybe we can do all this stuff without having to go through Congress. Maybe we can do it without Congress. No, you can't. You can't. In fact, experts have weighed in on this, and I want to give you two quotes. One is from the deputy director of Breakthrough Institute, and he says, "I think it would be basically impossible to achieve the proposed target with executive authority." And I think he's right, with executive authority alone, both in terms of investment and regulation. I'm sure there are things the administration can do on the margins, but for the ambition they're announcing, I can't see it happening without legislation, unless, look, the executive branch has a lot of power when it comes to issues involving national security. This is a national security issue. So is Biden willing to flex that muscle? That's the big question. But simply saying we don't necessarily need Congress without filling in the blanks of how you intend on doing this without Congress, I think is a problem. And then Mark Dyson from RMI also told Politico, the answer to the question of whether the White House can achieve such a goal alone is almost certainly no. It is very unlikely that this goal could be achieved without new federal legislation. Currently, many of the key rules and regulations are done at the state level. While some states have aggressive policies, they are not uniform or aggressive enough to meet the goal. And I think Mark Dyson is right about that as well.
Yeah, so my giant caveat is they're about to introduce an infrastructure bill at some point, and that was supposed to be $2.2 trillion. Credit to people like AOC who said it should be larger, and it should. And partly because, of course, then Biden is gonna go to compromise and cut the hell out of it. And so now Chris Coons, probably the top ally of Joe Biden in the Senate, is talking about $800 billion. Why is Biden's top ally instantly taking it down from 2.2 trillion to 800 billion? So that's a giant deduction. One of the things that now Susan Collins is asking for, and I'm really worried about, is that they're gonna say they're gonna take out every part of the infrastructure bill that has to do with Green New Deal. Well, then how the hell are you gonna hit these goals if you take out the parts about the environment from the infrastructure bill? So why is it related to infrastructure? You need green jobs. If you wanna switch from 20% to 50% of our energy coming from solar, wind, et cetera, well, you have to have infrastructure built to support that. How about all the cars? If you're gonna have 2/3 of the cars being sold being electric cars, you need charging stations. It's like Eisenhower building the highways. It is, but which, by the way, helped our economy tremendously and created a ton of jobs. That you were on the right track, but if you send Coons and others to go butcher that bill before you even get started, well, then you're not gonna hit any of these goals and it's empty talk. So look, jury's out. I like the proposals. Let's see if they follow through, and if they don't, we'll be here to tell you that a lot of folks in the rest of the media play patty cakes. We deal in facts, and it doesn't matter which side is on claiming those facts. We're gonna follow through it and find out what's actually true and report it back to you guys.
Well, let's talk about corruption and money in politics, because Ryan Grim had a fantastic piece in The Intercept that's worth discussing. It's not just conservative Democrats like Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin who are willing to fight hard to block a $15 an hour minimum wage. In fact, the National Restaurant Association has ties to all sorts of corporate Democrats in the Senate. And once you understand just how deep that corruption is, you'll get a better understanding as to why these lawmakers are unwilling to serve the best interests of their constituents while simultaneously serving the best interests of companies and corporations associated with the restaurant industry. Now, Jean Shaheen and Maggie Hassan gathered with constituents for a teleconference, for instance, with Tom Butcher, who was recently appointed to the board of the National Restaurant Association. This is the top lobbying group that fought to defeat the $15 an hour minimum wage. Butcher profusely thanked them for their help in thwarting the minimum wage increase, telling them they had prevented countless restaurants from closing down. By the way, the CEO of McDonald's has explicitly stated that in states that increased their minimum wage to $15 an hour, they actually saw an increase in business. Guess why? Because people have money to spend. So I know it's a crazy concept, but I do want to talk a little bit about how these particular senators have been corrupted by the restaurant industry. So. Democratic State Representative Maria Perez from New Hampshire noticed that, Maggie Hassan's statements are very similar to the talking points that you hear from the restaurant industry, from this lobbying group. She said, quote, "The language that I heard from the senators is the same language I heard from the Restaurant Association." Maria Perez was in that teleconference and she heard what they were talking about. So let me give you more details. The state of New Hampshire has tried increasing the minimum wage on 2 different occasions on the state level. Both times, their governor has vetoed it, right? So Chris Sununu is their governor, he's vetoed it both times. The National Restaurant Association loves him, they love him. And so you have this situation in which Maggie Hassan is about to run for re-election in 2022, and she sees the support he's getting from that lobbying group, and she's trying to compete. So she's definitely playing along with this scheme to block a $15 an hour minimum wage, but that's just part of the equation. Sununu, the brother of former Senator John Sununu, is under intense pressure to help Republicans take back the Senate, and a recent poll found him with a 51% approval rating among Democrats in the state. The same survey had him edging out Hassan in a head-to-head match. So she probably looks at that and thinks, oh, I need to probably move further to the right and serve the best interests of businesses and block a $15 an hour minimum wage. Also, it's worth noting that she receives donations from the Restaurant Association. She gets funding from them, including both Sinema and Manchin. Oh, sorry, one more graphic. Okay, so both Sinema and Manchin, they spoke at the National Restaurant Association's their annual conference this week. We've talked about it on the show, and both share a fundraiser. Ashley Flanagan Kennedy, who's married to Sean Kennedy, the top lobbyist for the National Restaurant Association. That's super relevant because it turns out that this person also has ties to Hassan, and that's motivating her decision to essentially block the $15 an hour minimum wage.
Yeah, so a whole bunch of things here. First of all, the Hassan strategy of let me try to copy the somewhat popular Republican governor by running to the right. Dumbest strategy in the world, never works, and is not gonna work in this case. If they want a right winger, they'll go with a Republican. It's just so obvious. But corporate Democrats are never gonna get it because they're paid not to get it. So in this case, by the National Restaurant Association. Look at how incestuous it is, right? So one of the top Democratic fundraisers is married to the top lobbyist for the Restaurant Association. Gee, I wonder why we didn't get $15 minimum wage. Because they're all raising money from the guys who don't want to increase the minimum wage. It's so obvious. And yet mainstream media, what, The Intercept, and David Sirota and us are about the only people who ever report on any of this. And so if you ask a mainstream media reporter, like, what's a campaign contribution? Oh, the fact that they're raising incredible amounts of money from restaurants who are dead set against the $15 minimum wage. You think that might have something to do with their votes? Of course course it has something to do with our votes. You really have to be nearly brain dead to think that it doesn't have something to do with our votes. And so, I mean, maybe we found the biggest suckers in America and made them all national media reporters. Anyway, speaking of suckers, Maggie Hassan makes the claim, as does Mean Gene Shaheen, that, oh, no, we're trying to look out for our constituents. We're getting letters into our office from waiters and waitresses and bartenders telling us they don't want a higher wage.
No, totally. I know tons of people who don't want to make more money. I know tons of people who are like, I really want to struggle. I want to work full time and struggle. I want to work full time and make $2.13 an hour.
Yeah, that's called the sub minimum wage. So if you're in a category, mostly tip workers, you can make sub minimum wages $2.13 at the federal level. It's ridiculous, and of course the restaurants don't want to move that. So they're doing the most obvious fake grassroots campaigns. And guys, I'll give you context. You remember when I don't know if you do, but when California was voting on the shared rides, Uber, Lyft, etc., and some other freelancers, that was a real tough issue. And when I went into an Uber, I'd ask people, hey, the drivers, which side are you on? And a lot of the drivers didn't want the Democratic proposal because they wanted what they consider their freedom as opposed to better wages and more guarantees, etc. Right? So now you could be on either side of that, but the people that were driving were really mixed. That was real, right? On the other hand, I have never in my life met a waiter or waitress bartender who was like, oh, no, I want lower wages. No, I want $2.13 and then hope for the best on tips. Oh, no, $15 minimum wage, no, I wouldn't want that. It's not a thing, it's totally fake. Go ask any waiter, waitress, bartender, ask anyone who's ever tipped, hey, do you want guaranteed $15 or not? 100% of them will say, yes, I want the $15 minimum wage. Yeah. This is such obvious horse crap. The only people who would believe it are national reporters.
So the one thing I'll add though is what the missing step for the $15 an hour minimum wage propaganda is that they actually had to find a way to make it seem real. Like they didn't even bother to do that. They just made it up, pulled it out of thin air.
Yeah.
And then with the Prop 22 in California, there was a lot of money involved with these Uber type companies funding the opposition and spreading a lot of misinformation about what that initiative did. But it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's the same virus. It's the money in politics that either funds the propaganda or funds the politicians to squash the policies that would actually help workers at the end of the day. So none of this is really that surprising to me. The one thing I'll bring up though, Cenk, because Nando made this point and I thought it was worth exploring. He talked about how think about how this country has, because of globalization, shipped its manufacturing jobs abroad. And so really service sector jobs employ the majority of Americans at this point. So if you're living in a state where you rely heavily on the restaurant industry for jobs and for revenue, would that also influence your decision to not stir the pot and get them angry?
Ironically, as a cook.
Oh yeah, I didn't even mean that.
Okay, so anyways, no, of course, so don't get me wrong. I know the game that's being played. Corporations hold their own employees hostage and they say, now remember, if you ever dare to pay them a cent above what I want to pay them so that I can maximize my profits, I'll shoot the captors, okay? And so I'll fire all of them, etc. Now, for some small businesses, there's some truth to that. Some folks can't afford to have, let's say, 4 workers at a certain price, and so they're gonna have 3 workers instead. So is that completely made up? No, it's not completely made up for small businesses. And then that's an interesting dynamic. For the larger businesses, 100% made up. Okay, McDonald's admits in their calls, almost all of them do. And more great reporting again, as usual, from Ryan Grimm and David Sirota. And in that case, it was Sirota. They go on, and Jonathan Larson at TYT.com loves doing this too. You go on the calls that they make with investors, the CEOs and the executives of these companies, and they brag nonstop. They're like, oh yeah, it doesn't matter. We'd make money at $50 minimum wage anyway. But now we're making even more profits because their wages are lower. Yeah, invest in us. We're maximizing profit at the expense of our employees. Now that's not a direct quote, but that is the essence of it as they brag about how they would make money either way. And of course that's true. Look, that's why I get so depressed at the state of the media in America. All you have to do is look at their profits and see, okay, now is there a single business reporter in the country? And then do the math on if they applied minimum wage to the number of workers they have, how much profit would they make instead? And the answer is a ton.
Yeah.
They would still make a ton of profit, right? So the idea that McDonald's or Denny's would go out of business if you did $15 minimum wage is a complete and utter lie on top of lie. And so, but the minute a politician says something, the waiters don't want to get paid, right? Every reporter's like, waiters don't want to get paid. Maggie Hess is a wonderful person, and she's doing this only because she's looking out for the waiters and waitresses. Absurd, ridiculous, it's called bribery. We've legalized it through campaign contributions. That is your answer for why they're doing it. Please wake up.
Yeah, and look, we do have some fantastic business reporters. They're all on CNBC, where 2/3 of the screen is taken up by a stock market ticker. But it's okay, I'm sure that they do great reporting there. We gotta take a break. When we come back though, you should watch Senator Kyrsten Sinema's speech before the National Restaurant Association. We have some video of that. And then later in the show, we'll tell you why Senate Democrats are incredibly embarrassing when it comes to the issue of marijuana legalization.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be. Featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity, the UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
All right, back during the break, let me read some of your comments. I love some of these. Analytical wrote in, OMG, I just heard an Edwin giggle and it's like the clouds have parted and angels started to sing. Damn, I didn't realize how much I missed it. Me too, brother. Me too, or sister. And that's Bart clapping from the control room. There's insanity in the control room tonight. And engineer writes in, this is all in our member section, tyt.com/join. Join in, become part of the Young Turks, become literally part of the show. Engineer wrote in, Anna, does it really depend on who's in office? There's been no substantive action on dealing with climate change, period. Lots of words from Dems on how bad it is and what we should do, but no action regardless of who's in the White House. I'll just say, look, there's a little bit of nuance there. Obama was, to be fair and honest.
Obama was weak, definitely weak, but.
He was both. He was nowhere near up to the task of what we need to do on climate change, and he was very weak overall, but he was 100 times better than Trump.
Yeah, no.
That's just the reality.
I mean, think about this. It matters that you have the leader of the United States, one of the top polluting countries in the world, taking ownership of how we've contributed to it, acknowledging that climate change is real, it's not a hoax. Like Trump went on the world stage and was like giving everyone the middle finger and saying like, we're not gonna do anything, it's a hoax. That's worse. I would argue that is demonstrably worse than a Democrat.
Yeah, there's no question. Look, on some issues, they were not that far apart, unfortunately, Trump and Obama and now
foreign
Biden.
Policy.
Yeah, but the environment they are. Trump was an absolute disaster. All right, the Aardvark wrote in, after both New Hampshire senators voted down $15 minimum wage, they both got away with the framing that they wanted to raise the minimum wage, but not in that bill. They really want to have a standalone bill, except they don't though. So the Aardvark, again, you're smarter than every national media reporter. They're all like, oh, they really want a standalone bill. Did you not ask them, hey, wouldn't a standalone bill be filibustered and be impossible to pass? Or do you think we're suckers? Is that what you think? Or do you think we're stupid? And the answer for the media, of course, they didn't ask that question because they are stupid. And so they were played for the fools that they are. And like, oh, Maggie Hassan wants a standalone bill. She cares so much about the $15 minimum wage. She doesn't want it in a must-pass bill. She wants it in a bill that could be easily killed. Come on, man, do your jobs. We got the smartest audience in the world, though. I love you guys. All right, Ashley Simpson, YouTube Super Chat says, I took a news break and I come back with Anna and Cenk in the office together. What? Exciting. Agreed, super exciting. Peter Hamby writes in, man, this explosion of new TYT subscribers on Earth Day. These are people who say we want to live on Earth, it must be protected. Hashtag new TYT heroes. Well, I'm right there with you, brother. We're right here, Peter, okay? But I didn't know there was an explosion. Good, I'm thrilled to see that there's an explosion of new folks that just joined. In fact, Sandra Morris, Sean D. Hoskins, Purist B4 Wine. All right, back in the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys, and all of you wonderful viewers with us as well, including Elder Mind Pulse on Twitch, who gifted 20 subs. How generous. Kind of love you. All right, Anna, what's the rest of the news?
Well, as we shared with you guys earlier this week, Senators Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin spoke before the National Restaurant Association, and that's of course the lobbying group that has been the most aggressive in squashing a federal minimum wage hike to $15 an hour. Now, we do have some video of Senator Sinema's statements and speech during this event, and this is exactly what it looks like when you've been bought off by business interests. Take a look.
There's a bill that passed the House, the PRO Act. Give us a sense as this bill makes its way to the Senate, where you intend to be on this. We know it's an evolving issue, and if you'd be willing to have a discussion with employers in Arizona about our concerns about this bill being a disruption to the workplace and to our business environment.
Well, I would welcome such discussion. As folks who are listening today know, the way I make decisions on behalf of Arizona and for our constituents is by listening to the business leaders who will be impacted by these decisions. I can tell you that many Arizona businesses have already reached out to my office, and I know have discussed the concerns that they have with the PRO Act with some of the folks who are on our call today. We are watching carefully because some of the PRO Act provisions, especially in regards to the worker classification test for independent contractors, could become a part of other legislative ideas. So I would ask all the members who are joining us today to please stay involved with my office and help me by sharing information about how this would impact you and your company so that I can go back to Senate leadership and folks on both sides of the aisle to discuss the concerns that Arizona businesses have.
It's incredible. Businesses, please just reach out to me. Please call me, please. I want to hear what you have to say, and then I'll go back to the Senate and I'll do exactly what you're paying me to do. Please do it, please. I used to support a $15 an hour minimum wage, but then I changed my mind once I realized that corruption feels so good. So good.
Yeah, now remember, that's the same senator who wore a ring that said F off.
That's right.
To her critics, i.e. her voters. So the voters F off. To the business interest, I'm listening. The way I make decisions is that I listen to business leaders and then I do whatever they tell me to do. I mean, she
just said
the
it.
first half of that. She
said
said it. You can rewatch it. She also said, now how you could be really helpful is by sharing information. Let me translate for you guys, by sharing checks. This is not complicated code words. She's speaking to business leaders and they want a lower minimum wage. They don't want the PRO Act. And so she's saying, if you share with my office, that will help me make my decision. This is not rocket science. Yeah. And so, by the way, the reason why I constantly talk about how important the media is and how much they fail at their jobs and why that matters so much is when Kyrsten Sinema did the theatrical thumbs down on the minimum wage, and because of that, the media covered her voting against higher wages. Do you know that her polling in Arizona dropped from 65 to 50?
Oof.
She lost.
I didn't know that.
She lost 15 points. when the media just covered a shade of how awful she is, right? Now imagine if the national media told you about their campaign contributions nonstop. Imagine if they showed you that video all the time. You know how much of a difference? Her poll numbers would be 5%. They'd be lower than the minimum wage we're trying to fight for, okay? And so her and Manchin would be devastated if the American people actually knew what they were about. But the national media is in the power protection racket. So that's why you need people like us and again, other progressive outlets to tell you the reality of who Kirsten Sinema is. She pretty much just told you right there in that video. And one more thing, Anna, that looked like a hostage video.
Yeah.
It looked like it was the Hunger Games and the corporate overlords from the Capitol.
Tell them.
Right.
Tell them what we told you to tell them.
Yeah,
tell
like they're
right
like, okay, line up against the wall.
Now.
Up against the brick wall. Now go. You want checks? Dance. And Sinema's like, yes, I listen to you guys. I will take your directions, corporate overlords.
Yes, I will do it.
Right away,
I will do
sir.
anything you say.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
So apparently relatively easy to convince these captives of the corporations simply with incentives and disincentives, i.e. money.
Well, let's move on to the issue of marijuana. The fact that it's still an issue in this country is pretty embarrassing. And oftentimes when we talk about it, it's because of Republicans standing in the way. But no, there are Senate Democrats who think marijuana legalization is not the way to go. Senate Democrats are split on the most obvious legislation on the planet, legalizing marijuana. Senator Chuck Schumer confirmed that he. Let me start that again. I messed that up. I want it to be good. I want it to be smooth. I want it to be smooth, people.
We want to be smooth like sativa.
People are saying they like it when we're smooth. Okay. All right. Senate Democrats are split on the most obvious legislation imaginable, and that's marijuana legalization. Senator Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, has promised a floor vote on marijuana legalization, but he's running into some obstacles with Senate Democrats standing in the way. He can't even get his own caucus to agree on that legislation. So 2 Democrats actually did speak to Politico and confirmed that they are not in favor of legalizing marijuana. For instance, Senator Jeanne Shaheen said, quote, and this is embarrassing, "I don't support legalizing marijuana. We're in the middle of an opioid epidemic. And the research that I've seen suggests that that is a way that more people get into drugs." What's the research you've looked at? Please share it.
Please share, please share.
Yeah, what reefer madness research are you looking into?
By the way, the government is actually, or not, in fact, not just the government, no one is allowed to do research on it because the government has marijuana as a Schedule I drug. So she just made that up.
She did make that up. And I also want to just note that the reason why we have an opioid epidemic is because we have private pharmaceutical companies that have a profit motive. But you wouldn't speak out against that. You don't want to upset them, right? Senator John Tester of Montana was similarly unenthusiastic about ending federal marijuana penalties. Legalization would, quote, "cause more problems than it solves," Tester said. That's it, end of story. Cause more problems than it solves. Even though we have 14 states that have legalized marijuana, not just for medicinal use, for any use. You want to do it for recreational purposes? Have at it. Has the situation deteriorated in those 14 states? I don't think so. In fact, now it's gotten to the point where the mayor of Birmingham, Alabama is saying that he wants to expunge people's records of marijuana possession related charges.
Yeah.
Okay, like what are you guys doing? Why are they so embarrassing?
Yeah, well, they certainly are. So let's give you important context. What percentage of Americans think marijuana should be legalized? Well, look, Democrats are struggling with this one, so it's probably close, right? 50-50, maybe it's not quite there yet, 45% of Americans. Well, that's a lot of Americans headed in the direction of legalization. No, the real number is 70%. If 70% of the country is on your side and you can't win, you suck at your job. As a politician, that's a fact. No one could argue with that. And by the way, the Democrats often have 70% of the country on their side. I can name you a dozen issues and they're like, I can't figure out how to win. $15 minimum wage, you name it. They're like, I don't know, how would I win with only 70%? On federal background checks, they have 97% of the country on their side. I don't know, how would I win? Just retire, you suck at this thing.
Yes.
You're all dinosaurs anyway. The average age is 190 years old in the Senate. Why? Because, hey, I'm an incumbent and so You think it's because of experience? Nobody gives a damn about experience. We don't even like politicians. Everybody, I can't stop talking about how bad the media sucks. Oh, people really like experienced politicians. No, they don't. Look at the polling. They loathe politicians. The problem is incumbents get all the corporate cash because the corporations think it's safer to give to an incumbent, more likely to win. So they have a giant financial advantage. That's why they're all 150 years old. And they're like, oh, marijuana, I heard that it's really scary. So in fact, let me give you a quote from John Hudak. He's an expert on cannabis at the Brookings Institution. And he said about the Democrats, I think they should be less scared of this issue, but ultimately they're not. What are you scared of? 70% are in favor of it. South Dakota legalized. By the way, then they turn to Republicans and they go, hey, for example, Senator Mike Rounds, you're from South Dakota. Your electorate, the Republicans in your state, the voters, your voters said they want to legalize.
Yeah.
He's like, nope. I
haven't changed my mind on the matter.
Yeah.
I haven't changed my mind. A Democrat.
No, Mike Rounds, in that case, the Republican.
Oh, he's a Republican.
Yeah, the reason I say that is because the reporters are like, well, maybe Schumer can get some Republicans, and there's libertarian Republicans, and a lot of Republicans from states that have now legalized. They go to talk to those Republicans, they're all like, oh, hell no way, no way. Okay, so, and then they go to the Rand Pauls of the world who are like, so what does the Rand Paul say? Well, I'm theoretically for people doing whatever they want with their bodies, but no. Loser, you hypocrite. And he says, oh yeah, maybe on legalization, but oh my God, letting people out of jail who were wrongly convicted? Hell no. How about new people? Maybe new people, since a lot of white people are getting arrested now, maybe I can make a deal on that. But letting black people who were wrongly arrested before, well, hell no. Rand Paul's a no on that too. So they have no chance of passing this. So the Republicans are hopeless as usual. But the Gene Shaheens and the John Testers, and of course, who else?
There's more. I have it.
Go ahead.
Come on, you know I have it.
And there's one last twist at the end of this story you're gonna love, but go ahead.
All right. So then there are the so-called undecideds among the corporate Democrats, and you have Senators Senators Joe Manchin, Bob Casey, and Mark Kelly. They all said they're undecided on legalization. And I apologize, I actually underestimated how many states have legalized it for both recreational and medicinal use. It's not 14 states, it's 18 states. 18 states have fully embraced full legalization. It's unbelievable. Also, as Politico reports, even those from states with legal recreational marijuana, as you mentioned, such as Republican Senators Mike Rounds of South Dakota, Steve Daines of Montana, and Dan Sullivan of Alaska are against or undecided on promoting or removing marijuana entirely from the Controlled Substances Act. And the fact that it's a Schedule I drug means that it's incredibly difficult for scientists to conduct the studies necessary on marijuana. It's really difficult to get the federal government to agree to allow you to get access to the marijuana necessary to do the studies. So it stands in the way of scientific research. It makes no sense. And to be honest with you, the reason why I'm more focused on Senate Democrats on this issue is because, look, Republicans are gonna Republican. They are who they are. What matters here is what the majority of the American people want. And as Cenk mentioned, 70% of Americans want it to be legalized. So what are they afraid of? What are Senate Democrats afraid of? And then, this is what we see on so many different issues. To simply say though that they're just afraid, I think leaves out your favorite point, which is, no, pharmaceutical companies know that you can grow your own pot. They can't monopolize it. And so if they can't make money off of it, they have no interest in legalizing it. And I think that's at the heart of this, really.
Yeah, that's another huge factor in this. By the way, 18 have fully legalized. 27 states have decriminalized small possessions of marijuana. That's a majority of our states. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Joe Manchin says, everything seems like it's moving in that direction. Even West Virginia has already legalized medical marijuana. By the way, one of the guys who led that was a frequent Young Turks guest, Richard Ojeda, when he was a he was in the state legislature and did a great job with that. But Manchin.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
Ads. It looks like we're moving in that direction, but right now we're not there. Classic Manchin, classic Democratic Party. 70% of the country's there, the majority of the states are there, but not yet, not yet, not yet. What the hell are you waiting for? Do you need 90%? What do you need, knucklehead? And then, of course, the real answer is money. It's all in the money, okay? So now, which leads us back to 2 last twists on this. So the guy from the Brookings Institution, Hudak, that I quoted to you before, he says, well, why would they want to delay a little bit? Well, a failure serves as a motivator for 2022, saying we need more Democrats.
No.
He's not even saying this skeptically like it's a bad thing. He's just telling you that's the reality. And he says that can be an effective fundraising message for Schumer.
No.
So look at how stupid Democrats are.
They're gonna lose.
We're gonna deliver nothing every time we're in office so that you vote for us next time. So I'll come a little further, and then we'll finally do it. But we're not there yet. We're not there yet. Keep sending in the money. You idiots, you're gonna lose to a fascist because you never deliver anything, even the easiest things. Final part.
Can I just add one thing to that? That's what Roosevelt did, He was like, I'm gonna hold off on passing the New Deal because no, he did it and he was tremendously popular and he won 4 terms. Yeah. 4 terms, guys.
You know what he did? He passed Social Security, the whole New Deal. He was incredibly strong and kept passing bill after bill after bill. And then people are like, oh, that worked, I like that, that made my life better. I will vote for you. That's how it works. But they're so addicted to the money, they can't see straight. If we trick our own voters, we're never gonna do it, but we'll keep telling them we're gonna do it. We're gonna raise small dollar money, and then we'll go raise money from the pharmaceutical companies, and we'll raise money from everybody. Precious, but you forgot, yes, money helps you win, that's why you do it. But the other guys are also gonna have money. The Republicans are also gonna have money, and they're gonna get to say, yeah, but you elected this guy and this loser did nothing for you. And that's gonna be correct. So the final part of this, John Tester, who's one of the 2 that is a hard no from this, from Montana. He says, well, there is one thing that I wouldn't mind passing about marijuana. Really, I thought you guys weren't there. You were totally opposed. What happened? What does he want to do? The Safe Banking Act. Now, that is important because right now you got to deal in cash with marijuana. It creates crime problems, etc. And I want them to pass that. But why is that the one thing Tester doesn't mind, the rest of the Democrats don't mind passing? And by the way, has some Republican approval. Because then the money flows to the banks. Who's another giant donor to politicians? The banks. There, I solved all the politics for you. It wasn't that hard.
When we come back, LeBron James unfortunately caves to the demands of conservatives. We'll discuss that and more. Don't miss it. We'll see you in a few minutes.
All right, back. Why, hello there. Back during the break. Twitch, Frank Morningtree gave 1,000 bits. That's awesome, thank you. He says, which destroys more lives, marijuana or alcohol use? Not remotely close, as you all know, but alcohol is already legal and gives campaign contributions, and so do pharmaceutical companies. Irie Man gave 420 bits on Twitch, we appreciate it. I'm gonna read a couple of really nice comments from Twitch. Shadow Dragon's been with us for 4 months using Amazon Prime. If you have Amazon Prime, it's free for you. We get the revenue. Even if you're a member somewhere else, please go do that. You can do it at tyt.com/prime. Learn how to do it. It takes about 30 seconds at most. Anyway, Shadow Dragon Road, and you guys are awesome. Thank you. Thanks for helping me keep my sanity through the pandemic and the end of my 13-year marriage. That's sad, but rock on with the progressive message. Well, the fact that we're in any way a help to you through tough times, that's wonderful to hear. Thank you, and stay strong. Okay, Sneakerhead, been with us 3 months, also using Prime, said, happy 4 months to me. Oh, apparently 4 months. Oh, I'm sorry, that's always on Jamine. Happy 4 months to me. You guys are looking great back in the studio. Keep up the amazing work. Sneakerhead says, love you guys and all you do for the people and your truth and strong backbone behind what you stand for. It's the only reason I got into politics and wanting to educate myself more because I finally found a home as a progressive and the best family to go with it. Well, we love having you as part of our family. And so thank you for being with us. Really, really appreciate it. And now let me go to some great comments here from our members at tyt.com/join. Dave T makes a good point. Says marijuana is a gateway drug to Taco Bell, Arby's, and Mickey D's.
Dude, let me just
inarguable.
Say,
yes.
Marijuana makes you realize how useless opioids are. Like, no, don't get me. That's why, like, the idea of that being a gateway drug, no, it's just no. And look, I'm not trying to. Some people genuinely need opioids, and so I'm not talking about that. But for people who are looking for pain relief, marijuana is a much safer option for some, for a lot of people.
100%.
Yeah.
What do you need opioids? What do you need oxy for when marijuana is so much safer and arguably is better? Richard Rowe for Congress wrote in on YouTube Super Chat. Funny how in Florida, where 90% of the jobs are service, we managed to overwhelmingly pass $15 an hour by referendum because 80% of our representatives opposed it.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? Now that leads back to Irene in our member section. I assume it's donations from the prison industrial complex that prevents Democrats from agreeing to marijuana legalization. Yes and no. First of all, do they contribute? Yes, especially at the state level. That's why you have the paradox of Florida, as that was just explained. But at the national level, pharmaceutical companies are a much, much larger problem. By the way, green sale today on Earth Day, shoptyt.com. All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys. We got an Earth Day special coming up at 5:30, so stay right here, 5:30 Pacific. And before that, we're gonna do a post-game fun story with Ben Shapiro going to Home Depot. You're gonna love, so stay right here. Members get more, tyt.com/join. If you're on YouTube, you just hit the join button below. It's so easy, go.
All right. Conservatives engaged in their typical theatrical meltdown over LeBron James and his tweet about the police shooting and killing of a 16-year-old in Columbus, Ohio. That was the story of Ma'Khia Bryant that we talked about on the show just yesterday. Now, in that story, the victim, the person who got shot and killed, was seen on body cam footage with a knife in her hand, and the police department is arguing that they had no choice but to use lethal force in order to save the life or the safety of the person that she was charging at. Now, they have non-lethal weapons. We talked about how you don't have to immediately go to a gun and a lethal weapon in order to respond to that situation, but LeBron James was upset about that, as many people across the country were. And on Wednesday afternoon, the Los Angeles Lakers star tweeted a photo that appeared to show the officer who was involved in the shooting of Bryant with the caption, quote, "You're next, #accountability." And that's when the fake outrage ensued, because as we know, the right wing has nothing to offer you other than fake outrage over what African-American celebrities and athletes are saying about a very real problem in this country, which is police killings. So Tom Cotton is one of those people. He tweeted, LeBron James is, get this, inciting violence against an Ohio police officer. This is disgraceful and dangerous. Is the NBA okay with this? Is Twitter. Now, mind you, this is coming from a Republican lawmaker who made excuse after excuse for the Capitol Hill rioters who were assaulting police officers, Capitol police officers. This is the same guy who had no problems with that, as you had those rioters chant things like hang Mike Pence, who was the vice president at the time. I mean, this is a person who, like, aids and abets violence by refusing to do anything about gun control, even when it comes to popular proposals like universal background checks. So for him to pretend, because that's what this is pretending. For him to pretend as if LeBron James's tweet is advocating for violence is pretty rich and also incredibly disgusting, which is why I was personally upset at the fact that LeBron James ended up taking that tweet down. And then he explained why, Cenk. I wanna just read you his final tweet on this, where he says, "I'm so damn tired of seeing black people killed by police. I took the tweet down because it's being used to create more hate. This isn't about one officer, it's about the entire system, and they always use our words to create more racism. I'm so desperate for more accountability." And it was so obvious what he was referring to in that first tweet. They want justice. When he's saying you're next, he's obviously referencing the fact that Derek Chauvin, who murdered George Floyd by kneeling on his neck for more than 9 minutes, was found guilty on 3 charges. That's what he was referencing there. But anyway.
Yeah, so a couple of things here. First of all, he used the word accountability. It's not really a demagoguing word.
It's a very dangerous word for Republicans. They don't like it.
Yeah, well, that's true. Trump and his acolytes hate accountability. Second of all, we catered to the right-wing way of thinking way too much. So the right wing thinks, black people telling us they've been getting abused by cops and shot by cops when they're unarmed. We never believed them. All these years, literally now hundreds of years, we never believed them. We think they're all liars, right? Now there's video evidence of it happening over and over and over again, and we still largely don't believe them. And we think the violence that the cops are doing is good. They're serving, they're serving the people. Okay, the cops are looking out for us. Okay, so you like that violence, you encourage that violence against unarmed people from a guy who has a gun and a badge. Okay, but when LeBron James asked for legal accountability, I can't believe he's in favor of violence. It's ironically the same exact racism. Tom Cotton sees LeBron James and goes, black person must be violent, right? He sees a white cop killing a black person and thinks, no, white cop, good guy. The unarmed black man who was killed 9 out of 10 times, no, he wants to smoke pot, et cetera, et cetera. So no, we shouldn't appease these guys at all. Now, I want to give you important context as to why LeBron James is so mad. Because one of the things that frustrates me about the media coverage of this particular story is that they're making it seem like it's a standalone story. Now, not all of them, and they of course give the context of George Floyd and some of the recent shootings like Dante Wright, but they make it appear like the killings of unarmed black men started with George Floyd. No, it's been happening for so long. In fact, on this show, I criticized LeBron James for not doing enough and not saying enough when it was happening over and over again in Ohio. And maybe that frustration is built up with him, and now he feels like, you know what, maybe I'm empowered. Maybe they can't really take my power away. Of course, LeBron, of course, you're mega rich. It's about time that he did this, and don't back down.
Yeah.
So he's from Ohio, he's from Cleveland, LeBron James is. So what happened in Ohio recently? Now this shooting was in Ohio. But again, the Ma'Khia Bryant shooting, she did have a knife. And she was lunging at someone. And so it's a complicated case. That one is complicated, right? So, but they make it seem like, okay, well, now we're gonna judge all black people and their anger and frustration based on this case alone. No, look at Tamir Rice, 12-year-old, we're gonna show it to you now. 12-year-old in Ohio has a toy gun in a park. The cops pull up, shoot him dead, 2 seconds flat. 2 seconds flat, they didn't ask. Hey, wait, you look small, you look young. Is that a toy, is it not a toy?
No questions asked.
No questions asked.
That's the thing.
They never even said put your hands up. Freeze, you're under arrest. You remember how they used to say that? No, a 12-year-old boy, they come up and shoot him dead. Oh, oops, it was a toy gun. So now more in Ohio. John Crawford in a Walmart. BB gun that he was going to buy from Walmart. He picked it up from the store. They were selling it there. And a white guy reported him like, oh, dangerous black guy with a gun. Cops show up, he puts the gun down, they start shooting anyway. He's in a panic, he comes back, murdered him, right there. The whole thing took 6 seconds. They didn't ask, hey, are you buying something? Freeze, you're under arrest, who are you? They see the BB gun on the ground, they kill him anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And the point that I want to make about LeBron James and his decision to take the tweet down, the reason why I found it so upsetting is because I realize that he isn't fully aware of his influence and power. Because the fact that LeBron James, Colin Kaepernick, these stars, these athletes get the kind of blowback and backlash they do from right wingers is because they're influential. They're literally seen by people as living heroes because of their talent, because of their abilities, their just all of their success, their fame, exactly. So that's pretty powerful. And so what Republicans do is try to bully people, these so-called free speech guys, right? They pretend to care so much about free speech. What they do is bully powerful and influential people like Colin Kaepernick, like LeBron James, so they'll be silent on these issues. Because Republicans want to have the dominant narrative. They want to dominate the narrative on these issues. And honestly, look at Democratic lawmakers. You think Democratic lawmakers are good at talking about these issues? You saw how Nancy Pelosi responded to Derek Chauvin's guilty verdict. You know, she said something that was incredibly embarrassing about how George Floyd sacrificed his life for justice. That is not the right way to handle the situation. But if you have powerful people who, especially young people, look up to, like LeBron James speaking out on these issues, it has power. And I want him to realize that and not get bullied into taking tweets down or remaining silent on issues. You shouldn't. He should definitely speak out.
Yeah, quick clarification. LeBron James played in Cleveland. He's from Akron in Ohio, and Tamir Rice was killed in Cleveland. So if you're new to this and you didn't realize that that black men were getting shot all over the country by police, okay, well, we just showed you the tip of the iceberg. We've covered dozens and dozens and dozens of stories on this show alone, let alone all the ones that where there wasn't video footage, and let alone all the ones that happened in the past. So if you come at LeBron or us or anyone saying, oh yeah, you should apologize for being angry that and putting cops' lives in danger, the people being shot and killed are the citizens. But to the people like Tom Cotton and the Republicans, they don't matter, their lives don't matter. That's why the slogan is Black Lives Matter. Because to people like Tom Cotton, they don't. And too often for police, they don't. We've seen it with our own eyes, you just saw it with your own eyes. And so that's what LeBron is mad about, and honestly, he should be even more mad. If they used all of their power together, they could have a giant impact.
Yes.
And by the way, one of the things they should ask for is accountability from Democrats. Because Democrats constantly talk, but they never pass any bills. They never, all these shootings and nothing ever changes. Because the Democrats don't have the courage to act. And the vicious racists that are in the Republican Party are constantly bullying the Democrats into complete inaction.
I mean, Biden promised a police reform commission, not to pass legislation, but to study the issue. And he backed out of that, guys. He backed out of that.
It's pathetic. Commission and political talk is, I'm not gonna do a damn thing about it.
And he wouldn't even do that. He wouldn't even do that. He wouldn't even carry out the commission. So look, we're honest about both sides here. And so Democrats certainly bear some responsibility when it comes to the inaction from the federal government. But again, and it doesn't just have to do with LeBron James. It goes for everyone. Understand your power and wield it. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, last thing that's now more political. Democrats have this awful strategy of, when we get in office, we won't do anything, so you'll have to vote for us the next time around. Man, you're gonna get caught. So you're not gonna do anything about police shootings, you're not gonna do anything about gun violence, you're not gonna do anything about marijuana legalization and all the people who were, millions of people that were wrongly put into jail because of that and continue to be put into jail because of that. You're not gonna do anything at $15 minimum wage, and I can go on and on and on. And then you're gonna come back and tell us, oh, elect us again so that we could do nothing again. Oh, this time we'll do it. No, you pulled the football too many times. Either do your goddamn job or just admit you're just a Republican and this is all kabuki theater.
Yeah. We got to take a break, but when we come back for hour 2, I promise you there are fun stories. There are fun stories. So don't miss it. We'll see you then.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.